Hello and welcome to a brand new edition of MMOFTW. I'm your host, Bill Murphy, and this is the week that was in MMO news. Now you might be saying, why is this guy looking at me so intently? Why is he talking to me with those startlingly green eyes? And I can't really get through this. I decided that it might be a better idea if, instead of just being a disembodied voice, if maybe I talk to the camera to at least start the show and then shift to the footage, because we all know that hot chicks like me bring in tons of views. So, enough with that. Let's get right into the news here with MMOFTW on MMORPG.com. A lot of stuff happened, but here are the top 5 stories for the week that was. The first one that we can talk about right now is Neverwinter's story. As you may or may not have been paying attention, Neverwinter put out a brand new module, Module 6 I think they're calling it. It is the Elemental Evil expansion. Elemental Evil being a throwback to that old D&D module, one of the first ones, one of the most popular ones rather, written by Gary Gygax himself. And, well, let's put it bluntly, it wasn't very well received. They did a whole bunch of major changes to the way the endgame progresses, to the way the leveling in the game itself from 1 to 70 happens. They went back and cut out a bunch of leveling dungeons, and they made dungeons for 3 players as opposed to 5. They're a lot easier now, so they're kind of just pushover leveling content, and stripped out those old dungeons completely, so you won't even have access to them anymore. They've completely decimated some of the XP rewards in the new zones and campaign zones, so that the grind feels even heavier than before. Hourly quests have been mind-numbingly dumbed down, and there are campaign zone levels which have been switched around quite a bit, and they're reusing old zones and calling them new zones, and all this other stuff basically that just hasn't been well received with the community. Myself, I've been playing the Oathbound Paladin, leveling him up from level 1, and I haven't really noticed any of the problems people are talking about, but I understand that I'm not at the end game. What I did notice was the Craglorn Crypts dungeon, and I'm like, this isn't what I remember, and it was just a pushover breeze, 3-man dungeon. Nobody talked to each other. We just kind of went through it all, didn't have to think, and that's kind of one of the problems I think with Neverwinter in general is throughout the leveling process and throughout gameplay in general, is you just face roll content. So even though the game has a lot of people playing and you can get together with them easily with the group finder, you end up not thinking, because you just face roll everything. Everything's super easy, and from what I understand, the end game content isn't hard, it's just very grindy, and this new patch, this new module with the Elemental Evil just made it more apparent, and it's ticking people off. So there is a big mea culpa that the lead designer Scott Schickoff went to the forums and said, right now there is a week-long double XP, not 50%, double 100% more XP than you normally get event going on the site, and that's just the first of the We're Sorries that are coming out of Cryptic and Perfect World, and they're going to take a whole look at the whole expansion, make changes to it as quickly as they possibly can. Of course, it's not going to be instantaneous, and moving forward, Scott says that further modules and expansions simply will not have these sorts of problems. So I hope they're right. I hope they get their stuff together, because right now this one's getting a lot of bad press, despite the Oathbound Paladin himself being a lot of fun to play. And moving right along, let's talk about some good news in the Guild Wars 2 world. The brand new expansion coming out hopefully later this year, Heart of Thorns, has a lot of changes to the base game, and one of those changes is what they call Specializations. The ArenaNet team put out a ton of information on Specializations and how they'll work with your professions later this year. There's part 1 as a primer, and part 2 is a reward tracks and elite specializations. Now, they didn't give you too much detail about the specific specializations for the classes. The Druid is still the only one we actually have a name for, but they hinted at the Engineer wielding a hammer. They hinted at some warrior changes and things like that. So there's a lot of information you can really dig into. There are 5 core specializations similar to the old trait lines. Players will need to choose 3 of the 5 for the baseline specialization track, so choosing the 3 cores will occur as a player levels from 1 to 80. Within each core, players will find 3 minor traits and 9 major traits separated into 3 tiers: the Adept, the Master, and the Grandmaster. You still with me? It's kind of similar to how it is now, only now the specializations and the perks you get from those traits are no longer just about the stats. The stats are completely removed from the traits and everything like that. You are really focusing on how your profession is going to play, the kinds of skills and abilities they have. So one of the examples they give is the elemental, the elementalist. I just lost my train of thought there. The elementalist being able to specialize in fire or earth and ice and stuff like that. It's really, really crazy. Completely changes the meta, but also separates stats from traits so that PvP will hopefully be a little bit more balanced. It's really more about your build, not just about which stats you have to go into. They're kind of hoping to take away from the Zerger builds that are out there right now, just ruining everything, or people dominating everything, really. So you can read more about Specializations on the website or at guildwars2.com, and we have an exclusive interview with the man, the myth, the legend, John Peters himself over on the website as well. You can find that link down below in the description. And in Star Wars The Old Republic news, or almost news, we got a tiny little teaser out of Star Wars Celebration and the Cantina Tour for something called Fallen Empire, which is presumably the game's next big expansion after the Revan expansion happened last year. We have no other details other than some artwork with the hashtag Fallen Empire, but presumably we'll learn more about it later this year, maybe even at E3 or something like that, so we'll keep you posted as we find out more. That is honestly all we have for that so far. Just wanted to let you know that there's a teaser image and that there's a hashtag called Fallen Empire. Ta-da! And in a couple of upcoming MMOs news, it seems that Echo of Soul and good lord, Cabal 2 both now have a closed beta date. Cabal 2 and Echo of Soul are both two of the upcoming free-to-play MMOs. One is being ported over by the team at Area Games, that is Echo of Soul, and it's been in Korea for a couple years now. It's developed by a lot of the key team members behind Lineage 2, and it may actually remind quite a few of you guys of Ion or Terra, because that's obviously kind of the aesthetic they're going for. So Echo of Soul's closed beta will begin on May 4th, and there are, of course, what free-to-play game doesn't have these anymore? There are Founders Packs ranging from $19.99 to $49.99 that will get you into the beta early on and let you start playing. Starter Pack all the way up to the Ultimate Dungeon Pack that has a whole bunch of other goodies and things like that in there. We'll be keeping our eyes on this one, of course, because there's not a whole lot of new MMOs coming out. We might as well focus on the ones that are coming here, whether or not they're drawing a lot of hype, because we actually got knocked the other day by saying, why are you focusing on these games? There's no hype. And I'm like, I didn't realize that hype was a prerequisite for covering a brand new game. It's a brand new game, at least here in the West, and we will be covering it, and hopefully it's good. I know a lot of people are worried about Area Games and how they usually do things, but right now it seems like they're putting a lot of effort into this one, so I'm hopeful that it will turn out to be a good imported MMO. And the other MMO that's going into beta very soon, in fact sooner than Echo of Soul, on April 30th, Cabal 2 from EST Games will be going into closed beta. You hopefully have some keys and stuff like that to give away to you guys sooner rather than later. And Cabal 2 is a traditional fantasy MMORPG with tab targeting, with a little bit more movement and action than your World of Warcraft or something like that. Wildly successful, but in other regions, Cabal 1 was very, very popular. Cabal 2 is something that a lot of people outside of the US have been waiting for, and I'm wondering if we'll see a lot of people in the US without a whole lot of games coming out in the immediate future actually latching on to either Echo of Soul or Cabal 2. So keep your eyes peeled. We'll be live streaming Cabal 2 when we get into the beta ourselves next week. We'll be playing the game and giving you our first impressions and all that good stuff, and it looks pretty. We can say that about both games, actually. Just hopefully they play like something more than just another run-of-the-mill theme park MMORPG. And I think that just about does it, folks. We have rambled on for quite a long time already. I hope you've enjoyed this week's top news for MMOFTW here on MMORPG.com. Remember to follow us on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook at MMORPG.com without the dot. You can also find us now on Plays.tv, which is a brand new social network for quick, short, little videos, also at MMORPG.com without the dot. Remember, I'm Bill Murphy. You can follow me at the Bill Murphy on Twitter. And of course, as always, don't let a bad pug get you down.